following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFN Geek coming to you with what will hopefully be a special review. And today we are going to be taking a look at not one or two, but all three of the Transformers Legacy Deluxe Class Insecticons. So here they all are. Alright, if I switch these two around, going in this direction, they're lined up in the order that they were released. The first one to be released was Kickback in the Legacy Year 1 line, and I think Kickback might have been released in Wave 1. So he was released at the start of last year in 2022, and then Shrapnel was released earlier this year, sometime in the late spring, and Bombshell recently came out about a month ago, so he's out on shelves right now. So it took about 1.5 years, but we finally got all three of the Insecticons in deluxe class form. So here they are inside their boxes. Here's some close-ups of their artwork. Their artwork here is Kickback in his insect mode and in his robot mode right there. Since he was released in Legacy Year 1, he doesn't have the QR code on the top of his box. It's instead on the back of his box, which I'll show off in a moment. Here on this side of the box, he's got the Legacy Year 1 poster. Turning the box around, there he is on the product photos. There's Kickback in his robot mode and his insect mode. He transforms back and forth between both modes in 14 steps. So there's that. And there are some differences in the boxes between all three of them, not just Kickback being released in Legacy Year 1, while Shrapnel and Bombshell were released in Evolution. For instance, one of the differences on the boxes is that Kickback's the plastic hook that allows him to hang from the pegs is made out of plastic. But then at the start of the year 2023, Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided to do away with all plastic used in the packaging of Transformers, so Shrapnel has that advertised here on the side of his box that it is plastic-free packaging used here, so the figure itself is the only part that's made of plastic. Everything else about the box itself is made of cardboard. And one thing I noticed recently is that the hooks are facing the opposite direction on Shrapnel and Bombshell. But yeah, here's Shrapnel in his box, some the box art of his insect mode right there, his robot mode right there. There's the QR code on the top of the box. Sorry for my fingers being in the way. And coming here to the side of the box, you've got half of the poster image for the Legacy Evolution line. And one thing that Hasbro and Takara Tomy did that I find enjoyable is that the poster image on the side of Bombshell's box is the other half of the Evolution poster. So if you get both Bombshell and Shrapnel, you can have the entire. They're two of the deluxe figures from the Legacy Evolution line that give you the whole poster image. So that's really nice that Hasbro and Takara Tomy did that. Here's product photos of Shrapnel. There he is in his robot mode and in his insect mode, the stupid Evo Fusion gimmick. Transforms back and forth between both modes in 11 steps. So yeah, really nice to see that. And last but not least, here is Bombshell. There's the artwork of his insect mode, images of his robot mode there. Top of the box is the QR code. Again, the other half of the poster image for Legacy Evolution. There's his robot mode and his insect mode. Bombshell transforms back and forth in 13 steps. The stupid Evo Fusion gimmick again. And I will acknowledge from reviews I've already seen that unlike Kickback and Shrapnel, who are entirely brand new molds, Bombshell is not. He is a retool of Shrapnel. I believe they have the exact same robot mode legs, and as a result, they have the same abdomens when they're transformed into insect mode. But there's enough retool parts on Bombshell that if you didn't know that they were mold mates with each other, you might think that they would be similar but differently designed, since the parts on Bombshell that are brand new are his robot mode head, his torso, I believe the arms, and maybe the robot mode thighs, but everything else, the lower arms and the robot mode legs, those are all the same parts used on Shrapnel. But yeah, they're a very nice looking and menacing looking trio of Decepticon Transformers. And one thing that I will acknowledge is that for years I thought Bombshell was the leader of the Insecticons, so I was surprised when I finally learned that it's actually Shrapnel who's supposed to be the team leader of the Insecticons. I thought Bombshell was the team leader due to him having my favorite gimmick of all three Insecticons, where he could shoot out of the cannon on the top of his head. He could shoot out cerebral mind control old chips that would lock onto the brains of other Transformers, both Autobots and Decepticons alike. And there were a couple of episodes in the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon where the Insecticons kind of went a little berserk, and they even attacked other Decepticons, not just Autobots. And I believe, even though the Insecticon, I can't remember if the Insecticons were introduced before the Dinobots or not, but the Insecticons are the first team of Decepticons who ended up acting more like wild, savage animals than actual sentient robots. They prefer to act like insects than Megatron soldiers, so that made them exceptionally dangerous, and for reasons like that, I've always enjoyed the Insecticons. All three of them are pretty great. My favorite is Bombshell, but if I had to pick a second favorite amongst Kickback and Shrapnel, it's very difficult, but I would have to go with Shrapnel and Kickback being tied for my second favorite. I don't like either of them more than the other, but I do enjoy Bombshell the most. The Insecticons in the Generation 1 cartoon, they ended up in the Transformers Generation 1 movie upgrading into the Sweeps, the generic look-alike soldiers of Scourge. Originally, they were upgraded by Unicron, on at least Shrapnel and Kickback were. But oddly enough, Bombshell was shown upgrading into the same body design as Cyclonus, which Skywarp was also. And because of that, to this day, Transformers fans are divided as to which Decepticon was upgraded into Cyclonus, if it was Bombshell or Skywarp. I believe it was back in either 2018 or 2019. One of the producers who worked on the Transformers Generation 1 movie for the I can't believe it. It might have been in 2016 for the 30th anniversary of when the Transformers Generation movie was released. But he said in an interview that all along the intention had been for Skywarp to have been the Decepticon who upgraded into Cyclonus, and Thundercracker upgraded into Scourge, and then all three of the Insecticons, even though Bombshell transformed into the same body design as Cyclonus, they upgraded into the Sweeps. Originally, there was just like Scourge. Cyclonus was supposed to have some look-alike Decepticon soldiers under his immediate command, and I thought I read that they were originally going to be called Cyclonus's Armada of Strikers. So basically, Scourge and his sweeps, they would sweep across the battlefield to see if there were any more Autobots still alive. After Galvatron and all the Decepticons initially blasted them, and then Cyclonus and his armada of strikers would then fly down and strike out any surviving Autobots that the Eeps weren't able to defeat on their own. But the idea of Cyclonus having look-alike soldiers like an armada of look-alike soldiers like Scourge is what I meant to say. The idea was scrapped after the scene where Skywarp and Bombshell get upgraded had already been animated and made it into the final film. In favor of it was dropped in favor of Cyclonus being a unique body Decepticon like Galvatron. So only the sweeps remained. But there's been a fan theory that I've embraced in more recent years that's been accepted by a lot of the Transformers fan and community, that the original versions of Bombshell, Shrapnel, and Kickback, that the original Insecticons, they weren't the ones that Unicron upgraded into the sweeps. It was clones of them, and that was one of the best features of the Insecticons. I apologize for forgetting to mention it before now. The Insecticons had the ability of making clones of themselves, and there's one scene in the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon, and in one episode, I can't remember what the episode was titled, but there's a screenshot where there's at least 20 copies of each of the three Insecticons flying around, and they basically could create their own Insecticon hoard. So there were swarms of Insecticons wanting to devour everything in their path. And if it wasn't explained or really shown how the Insecticons are able to make clones of themselves, elves, if they just multiply the way plants do, or if they just automatically would generate clones of themselves from out of thin air, that wasn't actually shown how. But due to an animation error with the Generation 1 cartoon's third season, the animation designs for all three Insecticons ended up appearing in a few episodes of the third season of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon, and so Transformers fans have been divided as to whether or not those were some of Bombshell, Shrapnel, and Kickback's clones that survived, or if they were in fact the original Insecticons and it was some of their clones that ended up being upgraded into the sweeps by Unicron. I personally embrace the fan theory that the clones of the Insecticons were upgraded into the sweeps, since the sweeps have a more drone hive mind mentality, just like bees and ants do, and even termites. Termites, where they just blindingly follow whatever their leaders tell them to do, and they think and act as one. And so, I personally like to think that the original Insecticon trio survived the Generation 1 movie, and they were still around during Season 3, and it was their clones that upgraded into the sweeps. And I have my own personal theory that area, or rather extension of that theory, that once the sweeps were upgraded, since the sweeps had the ability of cloning themselves like the Insecticons did, the original Insecticons lost the ability to make clones of themselves since the sweeps now possessed it and they no longer did it. And that's why during Season 3 of the G1 cartoon, the Insecticons didn't have a horde of clones following them around. It was just Bombshell, Shrapnel, and Kickback hanging around with the other Decepticons. One last thing I will point out is that unlike Shrapnel here, who's advertising plastic-free packaging, Bombshell is not. He's just got the Legacy Evolution logo on there. And if you look inside the boxes, it's kind of hard to tell. Bombshell is being strapped down by plastic tie-downs, the way Kickback is strapped down by plastic tie-downs inside his box. And part of the plastic-free packaging that Hasbro and Takara did with Shrapnel here is they got rid of plastic tie-downs and they brought back what they've been using in the Combiner Wars line, which was paper tie-down. And I've always enjoyed paper tie-downs because they make it much easier to get the Transformers action figures out of their boxes. And when I saw that Hasbro and Takara had brought those back, I was thrilled, since paper tie-downs are far easier and quicker to get Transformers action figures out of their boxes. And when it was announced that they were doing away with the plastic-free packaging and they were going to bring some parts of plastic packaging back like they'd had before, I was hoping that they would bring back the plastic window finally, with all the stories that Hasbro and Takara have been receiving about heads being stolen and parts being taken from Transformers action figures that have these open window packaging. But unfortunately, no, that's not the case. There's no plastic window. Instead, the paper tie-downs have gone out once again, and we're now back to plastic tie-downs holding Transformers action figures in place, since plastic tie-downs are apparently much cheaper than paper tie-downs to use. So I think it's a shame that they didn't keep paper tie-downs and bring back plastic windows. They just got rid of paper tie-downs and brought back the plastic tie-downs. But I really hope that for Legacy United, that open window packaging is now a thing of the past. But I've got a sneaking suspicion from the photos I've seen already of the Legacy United Wave 1 action figures that it's not the case. And actually, in fact, starting with Legacy United, I don't know how you can see it behind me, but if you look right there behind me, what I'm pointing at is Transformers figure I haven't reviewed yet. It's Legacy Leader Class Skyquake. And Leader Class Transformers action figures, ever since they went open window packaging here with the Legacy Year 1 line back in 2022, Leader Class Transformers for the last two individual years, 2022 and 2023, they haven't had any windows on them at all. And so what Hasbro and Takara are going to do with Legacy United next year is add open windows to Leader Class Transformers as well. So the idea is that there will no longer be closed boxes available for Transformers action figures. So how exciting is that? I say it sarcastically, if you're listening, Hasbro. But my own gripes with boxes aside, that's enough about boxes. Let's hurry up and get these three Transformers action figures out of their boxes, and let's take a close look at all of them in their robot modes. Alright, and so here are all of the Insecticons lined up side by side with each other. Let me move Shrapnel and Kickback away. Alright, so Shrapnel, the team leader, is now in the center. Enter, here they are lined up in the order they were released, starting with Kickback, who was released first, Shrapnel second, and Bombshell third. And between all three of them, I gotta say, they are a pretty impressive looking trio of Decepticons. And so, we'll take a close look at Kickback here first. I'm not going to go into the articulation too much on these guys, since it's almost all the same on all of them. Universal jointed shoulders, hinged elbow, waist swivels, thigh swivels, knee bent, ends. No wrist articulation due to how the hands transform, and the heads are on swivel joints for Bombshell and Shrapnel, and a ball joint on Kickback here, but it's a very weak ball joint. But yeah, I won't go into articulation too much, but yeah, very nice G1 looking here. And one thing someone pointed out is that the shades of yellow plastic used on all three of their chests are different from each other, so that's an interesting choice there. So yeah, there's Kickback in his robot mode. Oh, he's got these purple wing extensions that you can add onto his wings and make them larger, but they also transform into the abdomen for his insect mode. Oh, so that's what I'm going to do when we get these guys to insect mode. And although the laser guns that they come with are reminiscent of the laser guns that their original Generation 1 action figures came with, as I accidentally knocked Kickback over. One key difference between the Legacy Deluxe figures and the original Generation 1 figures, is that the parts that are gray, or silver, or clear plastic on all three of these Transformers figures, they were silver chrome on the original Generation 1 Insecticon action figures. I've seen a handful of hardcore G1 fans customize their Legacy Insecticons by painting Kickback's wings, Shrapnel's, I just lost the word for it, mandibles. These are his mandibles for insect mode, and also the horn for Bombshell, which is his cerebral mind control cannon on top of his head. These parts were all silver chrome, same with their laser guns. So I've seen a handful of collectors get a hold of some liquid chrome and chrome up the Legacy Insecticons. So avoiding Kickback this time. Here is Shrapnel in his robot mode. There's his laser gun. It's very reminiscent of his Generation 1 alt mode. And one thing for both Shrapnel and Bombshell is that these dual laser guns that they have, Shrapnel's are purple, Bombshells are black. They double as the back legs for the insect mode, so unfortunately, if you lose these laser guns, then their insect modes will be incomplete. So it wouldn't surprise me if 15, 20 years from now, copies of Legacy Bombshell and Shrapnel that appear on eBay are missing the back legs, since they double as as laser guns for the robot mode. Now, there's a nice close-up of Shrapnel's face sculpt. There's his Decepticon logo on his chest. And the reason why they all have these yellow chests, I'll explain it in just a moment. But that was Shrapnel. Here is Bombshell. Again, the parts on Bombshell that are newly sculpted are his head sculpt, his robot mode torso, and I believe the upper shoulders are the same, but from the elbow down, actually from the bicep down, the bottom 2/3 of Bombshell's arms, and then from the waist down, his entire leg sections are the same as Shrapnel is. And there's his dual laser guns. Again, just like Shrapnel, those become the back legs for the insect mode. But I really do enjoy how they all three of them came out. They're all pretty amazing looking. Technically, depending on how you have his wings positioned, Kickback is the tallest of all three of them, since you can extend his wings this high up. And that was a feature that you could do with his Generation 1 action figure. You could have his wings at different angles. I believe in the Generation 1 cartoon, they were kind of angled back a bit more. I just have them standing straight up just to show how tall Kickback becomes. But yeah, I really enjoy how all three of them came out, and even though Bombshell is a retool of Shrapnel, and between all three Insecticons, it's only 2.5 of them that are new molding, I don't care. I really enjoy how these guys came out. And I've been wanting deluxe class size action figures of Insecticons for years, so whatever flaws they have, I'm overlooking, and I'm giving nothing but good praises for all three of these action figures. And for a special size comparison with some other Transformers action figures, here are the previous iterations of the Insecticons. These are the Legends class Insecticons released during the Prime Wars trilogy lines of Combiner Wars, Titans Return, and Power of the Primes. So here are the Legacy Deluxe class Insecticons next to the Legends class, or as Legends class Transformers are now known, Core class Insecticons. So this was the previous size offerings for the Insecticons, was the 3-inch tall Legends class as Core class size and eyes, but it's really nice how the new 5.5-inch tall figures of them, just like these versions here, that they are very close to being mirror images of the original Generation 1 action figures, just with more updated articulated joints. Now, I said I was going to mention a moment ago why all three of them have yellow in their chests. It's the same with the Legends class figures here, though on these Legends class versions of Shrapnel and Bombshell, it's paint. And between all 6 of these, Kickback's the Power of the Primes Legends class version of Kickback is the only one who can do this. But when the Insecticons were originally released in Takara Tomi's Diaclone Robots line, they also had chairs for pilots. So if you have any of the old Diaclone robot figures, you can put one of them here, I believe, in Power of the Prime's Kickback's robot mode chest, and you can do the Diaclone gimmick of the Insecticons having human pilots flying around inside them, or Diaclone pilots, if you will. I can't remember if the Diaclone pilots were humans or robots, but you get the idea that the chests of these originally opened up, and in some of the more modern re-releases of the Generation 1 Insecticons, instead of pilots, they had Energon cubes that they could store inside them, and you can make it look like the Insecticons swallowed whole entire Energon cubes and were holding them inside of them. And so that was just a fun little Diaclone leftover gimmick there. But yeah, here they are next to their Legends class counterparts. Shrapnel was released originally in the Thrilling 30 line in 2014. This is the Power of the Primes re-release. I said Kickback was Power of the Primes, but I was wrong. I just remembered he's actually from the Titans Return line. And Bombshell L is so since this is the Power of the Primes version of Shrapnel, technically Bombshell was the first one of these that I got and added to my collection. He was released in Combiner Wars in 2015, Ian Kickback in Titans Return in 2016, and Shrapnel in Power of the Primes in 2018. So the Legends class Insecticons were released across 3 individual years, more or less. Yes, I just got the years wrong on Bombshell and Shrapnel. He was released in 2016 during the second half of Combiner Wars. He was released in 2017, and he was released in 2018. But it's yeah, you get the idea that the Legends class Insecticons took longer than the deluxe versions, but there are versions. But for as many differences as there are between them, there are also just as many similarities between them all. One thing that I do think is that I do enjoy more about out these guys is that I just lost my train of thought. But one thing that I do like is that the if you look at all 3 of the Legends class Prime Wars Trilogy Insecticons, the insect mode legs just hang off their backs, acts as kibble or filler pieces on them. And here in the for the Power of the Primes figures, the insect mode legs, for Kickback at least, they're incorporated into his arms and legs, and for Shrapnel and Bombshell, the insect mode legs transform into weapons. So unlike their previous Prime Wars Trilogy Legends class figures, the insect legs just aren't kibble that hang off the robot mode. They're actually a part of the more involved in the transformation. So even though the Insecticons having giant mechanical insects for alt modes, they can't technically be robots in disguise. They at least have more coherent robot modes than their Legends class counterparts. But yeah, it is nice to finally have the Insecticons in deluxe class size. So I babbled on long enough, longer than I wanted to. So let's hurry up and get these guys transformed into insect mode, and we'll wrap up the review. Alright, and so here they are transformed into their insect modes, and they are all equally impressive in their own rights. Kickback is a grasshopper on his instructions and the photos on the back of his box. It shows that you're officially supposed to attach his purple swords on top of his wings and make his wings larger. But some Transformers fans and collectors discovered that there's a 5mm port there on what is, unfortunately, it is his robot mode, buttocks. And if you insert the purple sword, if you combine the purple swords and you attach them there, then it forms a proper abdomen for his asshopper mode. I did that with the Ransack repaint of him. I got Ransack second again after Kickback, but I wanted to wait until all 3 of the Insecticons were released so I could open them up out of their boxes at the exact same time. And I think the wait was worth it. Especially for Kickback, having had him in my Transformers collection for the last 1.5 years, waiting for Shrapnel and Bombshell to also be released. Yeah, there he is. There. I think if I remember the name correctly, I believe Shrapnel is supposed to be a cicada beetle. If I remember it correctly. Here's his mandibles. They do open and close. I have them in a configuration where they're pointing straight forward, and they have the ability to go out as far as they were in robot mode, and you can clamp them together so you can make it look as though he's grabbing onto something to munch on. But yeah, really impressed with how Shrapnel came out. Just and there is proper storage for his laser gun there underneath him, so he has a cannon sticking from the underside of his chest. It's the same thing with Kickback, he has proper storage for his laser gun. Unfortunately, the same isn't true for Bombshell. There's no 5mm port for his laser gun to store on the underside of him, so the only place to store Bombshell's laser gun is to just stick it on top of him, or if you want, you could stick it on top of one of his robot mode feet there. But either way, unfortunately, Bombshell, he doesn't really have a symmetrical look, so I might or might not buy a second copy of Bombshell just to give him another laser gun to give him a more symmetrical look in his insect mode. Bombshell transforms into a Japanese rhinoceros beetle, which is why his horn is like this. I believe I believe on an actual Japanese rhinoceros beetle, it's the horn is actually more pointed up in that position, but that's the same position that it was in robot mode. But if you wanted to, you could have it pointed down, which I don't believe actual Japanese rhinoceros beetles are capable of pointing their horns downward. But yeah, he is in his rhinoceros beetle mode, and I really enjoy how the Insecticons came out. I really enjoy them all. All Oddly enough, Kickback is the only one that has dedicated wings. And in the Japanese Generation 1 cartoon, whenever they would transform into insect mode and the Insecticons would fly off, they'd make revving engine sounds as if they were jets. So that was a cool feature I have always enjoyed about the Insecticons is flying just like the Seekers and other Decepticons who transform into jet aircraft. But yeah, here they are all three of the Legacy Insecticons in their insect modes, and yeah, I really enjoy having all three of them in my Transformers collection at last. And of course, for one last special size comparison, here they are once again to their Prime Wars Trilogy Legends class counterpart arts. And I gotta say that even though I said in Robot Mode the insect legs just hung off as kibble here, one thing that Hasbro and Tomy did with the Legends class Insecticons for the Prime Wars trilogy is they were trying to match them up to their appearance in IDW's comics more than their Generation 1 counterparts, and so they have actual insect legs, eggs hanging off of them, whereas the insect legs for Bombshell, Shrapnel, and Kickback on the Legacy figures here, these are actually more reminiscent of their Generation 1 action figures. And on the original Generation 1 versions of the Insecticons, they actually had wheels instead of insect feet, so you could actually roll them around on solid surfaces. And the idea was, again, from the Diaclone Robots line, where the Insecticons were piloted mecha that were controlled by pilots. They weren't actually alive, and they didn't possess sentient intelligence. So, pun intended for what I'm about to say. That's one of the legacies of the Insecticons, is that the way they were designed originally for the Diaclone line, and those designs are still incorporated into modern day action figures of them. And so, for the final proverbial question of the review, do I recommend getting all three of the Legacy Deluxe Class Insecticons and adding them to your Transformers collection? Absolutely, I do. I still recommend getting them even if you have the Prime Wars Trilogy Legends Class figures that I brought out. Absolutely, you cannot go wrong having deluxe class-sized action figures of Kickback, Shrapnel, and Bombshell in your Transformers collection. I highly recommend you get all three of these figures when you see them in the store. Kickback's gotten released for a second time. I'm over the past couple of months at Walmart stores here in the United States. So, out of all three of them, the one that's been the most difficult to find has been Shrapnel, since he only got released after his initial release. He wasn't really didn't really appear anywhere or available for purchase. But Bombshell, since he's been out on the market right now he's just been released. He's pretty easy to find right now. So out of all three of them, Shrapnel, the team leader, is somewhat ironically the most difficult of the Legacy Insecticons to find. But I do recommend getting all three of these figures if you can. Just like Kickback was repainted into Ransack during Legacy Year 1 last year in 2022, Shrapnel and Bombshell can be repainted also into some of the other deluxe class Insecticons. Shrapnel can be repainted into Chop Shop, and Bombshell can be replaced into Ransack, or not, sorry, not Ransack, either Venom or Barrage. But so hopefully, if and when we eventually get Ransack, Venom, and Barrage repainted and retooled from Shrapnel and Bombshell, just like Ransack was from Kickback, Hopefully the other deluxe Insecticons won't be exclusives and they'll be released at mass retail, but who knows if we're even going to get them. And a majority of the Transformers action figures coming out in the Legacy Year 3 line, which has been confirmed to be named Legacy United. The deluxe class Insecticons aren't among them, but we'll see if we get them someday. But for now, the original trio of Insecticons being released in deluxe class size, these are among my favorite Legacy Transformers action figures, and I highly recommend you get them all. Also, thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TFan Geek. This has been my 3-in-1 review of all 3 of the Transformers Legacy Insecticons, Legacy Year 1 Kickback, Legacy Evolution Shrapnel, and Legacy Evolution Bombshell. I highly recommend you get all these guys. They're among the most menacing and irritating of the Transformers characters. The Insecticons are have always been around to make sure that they bug out Transformers fans of all ages. So thank you guys all so much, and until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.